Hello, and welcome to our first webinar, Simulation Sessions. Here, we will regularly be hosting guest speakers from the simulation community to share their knowledge and expertise about everything simulation. I am Todd Smithy, the Director of AVT's Training Center. Here, we have developed and are teaching boot camps covering simulation topics, everything from simulation principles to visual simulation, the user environments, and simulator support. We will also include additional topics on the latest in AR, VR technologies. As part of our courses, we take the students through hands-on demonstration at our industry partners' facilities where the students get to see and touch many of the elements and components learned throughout the course. Please click the link below to learn more about our exciting courses in partnership with the University of Central Florida's Continuing Education program. I want to personally thank you all for joining us today. Now, I would like to introduce AVT's Chief Scientist and Lead Simulation Instructor, Walt Chambers.
Hi, I'm Walt Chambers. I'm glad to be with you today as we explore the use of augmented reality and virtual reality in simulation. And I'm glad to be able to introduce our guest, John Cunningham, who is with us today. Among his many duties, he is president of the VR and AR Association, the chapter in the Central Florida area. So John, we're glad you could join us, and I'd like for you to kick things off by telling us a little bit about yourself and the association, how it got started, and how broad the Central Florida chapter has become.
Sure. Thanks, Walt. And first of all, good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for taking the time to join this this webinar today. And as you mentioned, I'm the current president of the Central Florida chapter of the VR/AR Association. And there's an interesting backstory to that and how we came to start the chapter here in Central Florida. In my previous role, as many of you know, I worked at the Disney Corporation. And one of the things we were looking to do was to start developing more virtual and augmented reality applications for our customers. And that was about 3 years ago, as VR and AR really were starting to be taken seriously as technologies that could supplement a lot of the things that we're doing. But trying to get reliable, accurate information about the technology and what really can it do and what can it do and how do we integrate it at that time was a little tricky. So I started flying around the world, actually, to conferences to go to some of these VR and AR Association conferences and some of the summits and things like that, so that I could learn and bring that knowledge back to my organization and to my team. And one of the things that I noticed very quickly was that while this is a very broad technology, there is this very close ecosystem of people really working together and collaborating and trying to figure the best use of this technology out together. And what I realized as I went to some of these conferences is that we have a lot of companies right here in Central Florida that were actually tackling some of those same problems, and in many cases were ahead of where a lot of these companies that I was seeing speaking, at conferences. We had organizations like AVT right here in Central Florida already doing a lot of this stuff. But we have a unique ecosystem here because in Central Florida, so much of our business is around the Department of Defense and their needs. And by the sheer nature of that kind of work, there isn't a lot of information sharing and collaboration. It's just, it's just the nature of how defense works. So I saw that if there was a way that we could connect organizations here in Central Florida to this broader virtual reality and augmented reality ecosystem, that would help us. That would help us get access to technologies that we may not be aware of or new applications. And it would also help our organizations here kind of get connected out to the broader ecosystem. Plus, the VR/AR Association could provide a way for us here in Central Florida to get together on a regular basis, share best practices, and start collaborating here today. So that really kind of inspired me, and I reached out to the VR/AR Association and said, look, Orlando is really the center of the simulation hub of the world, and so many things are going on here, but we don't have a chapter, and I raised my hand and said, So I reached out to a number of folks in the community, including the Air Force, the Army, the Navy, Team Orlando, companies, CEOs and technologists all around, and said, look, we've got this idea, but I don't know enough about this myself. Can you guys help out? And I tell you, I was absolutely amazed by the level of support and enthusiasm that people had about this idea of setting up a chapter. And so that was really the genesis of it. And we launched the chapter. We started planning in February of 2019. We launched the chapter in July of 2019. And by the way, we got so much excitement at the Orlando Economic Partnership and the city of Orlando and the Orange County that Mayor Buddy Dyer declared our first chapter meeting, declared that day, I think it was July 9th, as the VR/AR Association Day. And we had lots of support from Congressman Stephanie Murphy and from other folks. So, really this technology is ubiquitous across businesses and organizations here in Central Florida. It really isn't just training and simulation. I mean, we've got the theme park industry, we've got hospitality, we've got a lot of real estate organizations. So, I've been in technology for many years, and this is one of those few technologies that really are ubiquitous across every single industry. I mean, you can find use cases from healthcare to manufacturing to tourism, you name it, there is a place for this technology. So we got the chapter going, and we've been operational now a year and a half. We've got something like 200 people regularly attending our events, which recently have gone virtual because of obviously of COVID. But more than a measure of the number of people coming to our events, it's really been the collaboration, right? It's been people starting to work together and really making those connections. And now it seems like every week or so I'm getting calls from people saying, hey, I'm trying to solve this problem. Do you know a company that does this? Like recently, there was a company in Orlando that does retail kiosks. And because of COVID, their customers don't want people going in and trying things on in the store anymore. So this company was looking to create a solution that used augmented reality. And I said, sure, I know a company that's working on those kind of things, and I was able to pair them up. And so we're starting to see a lot more than that. So let me do this. If you could bring up the slides that I've got about 3 or 4 slides, not a lot, but just something to introduce everyone. So what is the VR/AR Association? And really, it's a global industry association that's designed to foster collaboration between organizations. So really, it's about connection, it's about education, and it's also about helping to design industry best practices and guidelines. Now, it's not a lobbying organization, it's not a standards organization, but what we are seeing is that we're able to share best practices, put committees together, and come up with those best practices to share back with folks that are trying to use it. Next slide, please. Oh, actually, I got to the slide. Sorry, Taylor. So the way the association is today, we've got about 4,400 companies, brands, and schools that are members. We have 75 different chapters all over the world. We've got industry committees, so we have about 20 industry committees. And what those are global committees of folks that volunteer to work together in specific areas. So, for example, I sit on the aerospace committee. That committee, by the way, is the co-chair is Dr. Alethea Duhan, who is the technical director here for the Air Force Agency for Modeling and Simulation. She's one of the co-chairs on that committee. And we're looking specifically at how can these technologies be leveraged to address the needs of the aerospace industry. We also have a healthcare committee. We have education committees. So if you go to our website, you can see all these different committees. And so what we do is it allows our members the opportunity to get engaged in committees that are dealing with issues that might be specific and relevant to their organization. And it really is about education. So much of what the association is doing things like writing white papers, providing reports, running training programs, and you'd be surprised, a lot of these training programs are free of charge. People are just want to share their knowledge and help other folks out. So now let's talk about Central Florida, and really we have a a special mission here in Central Florida that we're trying to achieve. And that's to serve as a conduit between our regional industries, the Department of Defense, government agencies, and also the emerging tech community to start by fostering collaboration with our own community. And then to be able to get access to the latest technologies and methodologies that are being used around the world and bring those into our community. So that if we're not having to spend resources and dollars tackling a problem that somebody else has already tackled. And then third, to create a bridge to the global VR/AR ecosystem and create both inbound and outbound business opportunities. So as I mentioned earlier, helping organizations here that just normally they wouldn't have the resources to be able to find out who's the best person or the best company that's solving psychiatric treatment or medical problems. We can use the leverage of the global ecosystem and find those companies and connect them. And then also, one of the big initiatives that the Orlando Economic Partnership is working on is bringing outside investment into Central Florida and helping grow companies here and create opportunities for people that want to work here. And so that is one of the other goals that we have, is to be a beacon to potential investment organizations that are looking to invest in emerging tech companies. And then lastly, to provide education and training programs. So now we started off by calling our chapter the VR/AR Association of Orlando, and it's still kind of represented that way in the website, but we really have expanded coast to coast. So Orlando by itself is a relatively large area, but when you combine Tampa, St. Pete, Naples, and of course the Space Coast, and now we have members from all over. So I've really been surprised to see how many organizations out there want to team up with us and work with us. And recently at one of our last meetings, there's a software coder group down in Fort Myers called the Southwest Florida Coders Group that wanted to join us. They've got 30 or 40 folks down there that are working on VR/AR and don't have a lot of access, to the kind of resources we have. So they've teamed up with our organization, and we're actually going to be hosting an event in Fort Myers here in a couple of weeks. So we really are a coast-to-coast organization. Now, none of this would be possible without a lot of people working together. And so while I stepped out and raised my hand to take this on, I absolutely did not do it alone. And there's a lot of people that really need to be recognized. One of the things that we did was formed an advisory board. And these are all volunteers that are taking time out of their busy schedules to help out, but who also share the common vision that we have. And so you can see we've got a number of very well-known industry professionals helping promote the organization and helping us do some great things. So, I always want to make sure that we recognize those folks. All of them are also on our website. One of the things that we did recently, last May, we had a webinar where we talked about the impact of COVID on military readiness in the training and simulation market. And John Meyer from NOC TSD, Gary Frost from the Futures Command, and Colonel Epstein and Dr. Duhan and Colonel Cooper from Athens all did a wonderful job. And also Dr. Neil Finkelstein over at the National Center for Simulation. We had a panel discussion, and we had something like 4,000 viewers in that webinar. So it was obviously a lot of interest folks had. And so out of that, we published a report. We just basically took the feedback, the information, and then did some subsequent interviews and published our first report, which is available on the chapter website. So you can stop these slides now, Taylor. I think I don't want to. It's Friday afternoon, and I don't want to PowerPoint people out. So,
John, let me ask you a question. What if someone that's listening in is interested in joining this group as an individual or a company? How do they go about that?
So one of the the VR/AR association has memberships. I mean, as an association, we need to be able to fund the things that we want to do, fund some of the global conferences, the research that we do and things like that. But one of the things that we've done as a chapter is we've made it a policy that all of our events are free and open to the public. We never want to charge anybody in the organization or anybody in the area or anywhere else to attend our events. So getting involved with the VRAR Association is as easy as going to the VRARA website, signing up for the Orlando chapter newsletter, and you'll start getting notifications of events that we're doing. Or you can also email me at orlando@thevrara.com. That's orlando@thevrara.com, or find me on LinkedIn. But we really encourage folks just to pop in and come join our events. A couple of exciting things that we did recently that a lot of people enjoyed was, about 4 months ago, someone said, "Hey, we're the VRAR Association. Why are we doing events in VR?" Right? There's a lot of a lot of this technology starting to become widely available. So we decided that we were going to try a couple of different VR platforms and host our events. So about 3 months ago, we hosted our first event in AltSpace VR, which was great. It was amazing to be able to go into the event and be able to socialize and talk to folks, and then have the presentations being presented up on the screen. And then our last event we did using the Engage VR platform, which I posted out on my LinkedIn. I was blown away. I knew it was going to be interesting. I knew it was going to be cool, but I was absolutely blown away by how you can have an experience in an event sitting in virtual reality and feel like you're really there. And in fact, in many ways, you could get more of an experience because you're able to move around the whole event. And in fact, one of the presenters, the River out of the UK, took a castle, an old archaeological ruin, and put it up on the stage in VR. So we're sitting there in the theater with our VR goggles on, seeing everybody else. We got these big screens up, and all of a sudden the castle pops up on the stage, and all the attendees could run up there and run around it and look at it. You could never do that in a real event, right? That just wouldn't be possible. And then they teleported us out of the theater into a warehouse where there was a scene of a fire, and we were able to actually experience and watch the whole fire start consuming furniture, and the fire department came and then transported us to another area. So there's things that we can do in these events that we can't really easily do in the real world. So I, those moments when you see the future. I had one of those moments where I absolutely fundamentally believed that virtual reality was going to change the way we attend events. And it probably won't ever replace physical events, but definitely to be a complementary aspect of it.
Yeah, John, virtual reality gets a lot of attention because of the application, in gaming and entertainment. But augmented reality has been around for quite some time. Actually, and that's a lot of that's because it's used operationally as well. Gunner sights, if you will, is augmented reality, and night vision goggles, in a sense, is augmented reality. Some of the like pilot night vision systems in the Apache, that's augmented reality. So it's been operational, and in those cases, it's been brought into the simulation world to do that. So augmented reality has been around for a while. Modern days, we think of it more as an independent training aid, like maintenance trainers are using it quite effectively. But the VR is kind of a different world, because now you're closed off to the real world environment. It all has to be brought in visually. And that's been a challenge. There's been what I call a number of virtual reality simulation technology prototypes developed. There's not many that have really gone into full training mode. There's a few examples, like a submarine conning tower use VR and some of those things. But the transition into the simulation world is pretty dramatic and complex for the VR side. do you have some comments?
Sure, sure. No, I mean, look, there's something happening it's been happening that's causing this fundamental shift, right? So if you go back 40 years in simulation and training, most of that research and development has been funded by the Department of the Defense, right? That leading edge technology, it took huge dollars to run the hardware, the devices, things like that. So this stuff was kind of developed around a specific need, right? Now, what's been happening in the last 10 years, if you will, up until now, and it's going to continue to happen, is that the commercial industry is starting to look at how can we improve the way we do business? How can we sell our products better? How can we service our products better? How can we design new things? And all of a sudden, this 3D technology starts becoming very interesting, right? And so that's when you get companies like Unity that's been really investing, got companies that come out of the gaming industry that are looking at this and say, how can we use this technology to do things for business? And then all of a sudden they start, taking that massive investment that's going into gaming and entertainment and then moving that over to solving business problems. And so I think what we're seeing, back to your question about moving into training, I will say that in the commercial world, we're starting to get a lot of traction at VR. I mean, our customers like Mercedes-Benz are developing their cars using VR, or they're doing prototypes. It's really becoming a tool that companies are deploying at scale. Now, the training and simulation industry has some of its own unique requirements that probably require different or higher speed technologies. But we're getting there, right? And I also think that there are fundamentally some barriers in the market because so many of these systems have been built on older technologies, and folks are trying to keep that investment in those technologies working, where sometimes bringing in new technology completely may be a more viable solution, right? But I absolutely see the next 5 years that that VR technology is going to be used in ways that people aren't even imagining today. I mean, I was at a conference where I saw a production system in a hospital where a neurosurgeon was using VR to help show, he was a pediatric neurosurgeon, and they were using virtual reality to be able to take parents and the child patient into their brain, kids that had tumors, and they were able to take them into the brain and show them the tumor and explain to them how they were going to do surgery and remove the tumor. Now, at first, this sounds really daunting, but imagine being able to sit there as a family and be able to help these children understand what's happening to them. And I went into this system, and it really was amazing. And what came out of that was the recovery rates increased tremendously. The cost of medical care got reduced tremendously. So now this organization is starting to use this as a tool in their pre-surgery counseling. Okay.
Yeah, the medical side is moving into using this, and I know we've got some work going on in that area at AVT too. And as you've said, the architectures of the traditional large simulator investment that the government has in all of its training centers doesn't have really the interfaces that are directly compatible with the VR world, and because it's more modern, and so we've been using the slower interfaces because the technology was that way over the past 20 years of interfaces. So it's been and it's a challenge to bring that architecture in. Now, there's some aspects going on in the government that are looking at, in the research side, to put prototypes together that can draw on a faster access to data that's in the cloud, and work directly with simulators that are out at the point of need, that they can get that communication going for training. But it's going to take some time for the traditional simulators to move in. My 50 plus years of experience in the simulation technology area and its transitions, I mean, it takes 10 to 15 years to get from where it starts to becoming useful to whether you really get it deployed out there in use.
Yeah.
Amount.
Well, I would submit that I think part of that is because of the acquisition process too, and the DoD's recognize that. I mean, Dr. Will Roper from the Air Force continuously talks about, speed of innovation, and they've got to fundamentally change the way they acquire new technology. I mean, if something's sitting out here today and it takes 5 years to put it in the hands of soldiers and airmen, that's just unacceptable. So they're tackling that obviously at an acquisition level, and it's just going to fundamentally require organizations to look at things differently. But there is massive investment in some of this infrastructure that can't easily just be replaced. I mean, there's thousands and thousands of assets and things that need to be recreated. You've also got data rights, who actually owns those assets, because when they signed the original contract, it belonged to this company and not that company. So there are some big challenges that need to be tackled. But I will tell you that the technology is not the barrier, right? The technology is not the barrier today. It is the interconnectivity of systems. And if you had to start with a clean slate, you could probably build it as fast as you could if you try to integrate everything. And look, I'm not saying anything that the service organizations aren't saying themselves. It's just you got to find a way to bring. You can't lose capability while you're trying to build something new. You got to try to find a way to make them work together. So I know at Unity, we're working very hard on solving some of those integration issues, such as bringing WGS84 geospatial data or terrain data into the Unity environment. And I've been told that we've got that problem solved, and we're going to be coming out here in 2020, 2021, at the beginning of the year, with a way to do that. So and I know probably all those folks out there listening, this is probably the first time you've heard this. We're going to be talking about that a little bit more in October when we have our Unity simulation and training industry webinar. We're going to be talking about the investments that we're making in this industry. Folks have been seeing on the website, we're hiring lots of people. We've got 6 people in Orlando now just to support the S&T industry. So I think the next few years we're going to see rapid adoption of VR and AR technologies.
You might bring up, once as we move into this faster and greater access to large amounts of storage and so forth, there's other appendant technologies that can come along with that. So like machine learning and that sort of thing, and that can flow in once we get to higher speed interfaces.
Right. So I'm glad you brought that up, because that's actually that's another one of my passion areas. I mean, VR and AR has absolutely been a passion area, but AI and machine learning is just there's just tremendous potential there. And so let me start by talking about some of the stuff that we're doing at Unity and how we're trying to solve that. So if you think about video games, and when kids are playing, or adults or whatever's playing a video game, and you're going through an environment, you got an opposition, or you got someone you're battling against. If that agent, let's call that an agent, if that agent in that game has intelligence and can play either harder or smarter or back off a little bit to allow that player to have a better experience, then it makes that game, the engagement of that game higher, right? And so that's something that Unity's been working on for years, and we have a product called ML Agents that a lot of these gaming companies are using to embed into their games. So if I'm playing at A level, the system will figure out that I like to be challenged, and so they'll always have this agent playing a little better. But I might be a player that gets very frustrated, and when the other player's better, I quit. So the system has to have enough intelligence to adapt itself, right? So that technology is relatively mature. We're starting to now bring that technology into the training and simulation space, and be able to embed that into training applications. So either your red team or your blue team, both sides, you want to have intelligence in those agents to make decisions based on the mission, based on the scenario, etc. So machine learning, it just in that area, that one simple area is there's a lot of opportunity. And not even getting into autonomous systems and things like that, because that's a whole other area. But the other thing that we're doing in the area of simulation is the ability to generate synthetic data at scale. Okay, so let me talk about that for a moment. So right now, one of our biggest users are the automotive and autonomous vehicle companies that are trying to teach their models, their AI models, in their autonomous systems. So to teach those models, they have to go out and generate lots of road miles, right? They gotta teach that software how to operate in that environment, how to react to certain things. And so, one way to do that is to go out and just drive lots of cars, millions of miles, and gather that data. Excuse me. But that's also very expensive. Another way to complement that is to be able to create synthetic environments, cities and country roads, and to be able to run those cars in the virtual environment through those synthetic environments, and then change all the parameters. Like, it might be 8 o'clock and sunny, now it's 9 o'clock and rainy, now it's 5 o'clock and the sun's going down. Oh, a truck just stopped in the middle of the road, right? To be able to introduce all these different parameters into that scenario so that artificial intelligence model can learn and get smarter and feed that back. So we recently published a blog post on our website where BMW generated 240 million miles in our synthetic environment to train their autonomous vehicles. So that's just phenomenal, right? You're able to get a lot more data at a much lower price point. And we're not advocating that companies are gonna replace doing physical data collection, but this is another way of supplementing it. And so what I think is really important, Walt, is that organizations like AVT and your training center, are able to create courses and programs to help organizations understand the technology, how to use it, how to integrate it, right, and how to get the most value out of it.
John, one of the questions that came up was how you, what are your quality control measures to get good data that isn't corrupted?
I'm not the right person to ask that question to. We have folks on our team. In fact, Chris Harden here in Orlando leads our AI team. What I can do is take that question back and try to get you an answer. I don't know how they handle the data, but that is I hear that question a lot, and I know there's answers to it. I'm not the right person to answer that.
Yeah.
So the question is, how do you handle data? I hand it to the engineers to solve that problem.
Yeah, I understand. Well, it has to be tracked. It's really important to do that. And of course, we're all very familiar with that with the virus data issue that's circling the world right now. Okay, another thing about the data in the AI area, using the cloud. Are you applying that?
Yeah. So let me give you an example of how we're solving this. So we built cloud infrastructure that we call Unity Simulation, and basically imagine if you needed to run 1 million different instances of an application to get that data. Well, you could run it on one machine or two machines, and it would take a long time to go through all of that data. Or you could spin it up on 1 million servers and run it all and get all that data in 3 or 4 hours, right? So a lot of people, think of Unity as the game engine company, and really Unity is a very powerful enterprise development platform, and we're bringing on a lot of these other services, and one of those is a cloud-based service where if folks want to run this simulation at scale, they can hook up our cloud service into their simulator, run all that data, and then have it fed back in. And that's actually offered as a metered service, right? So they would then pay for the amount of processing time that they need to run that data. So that would tremendously lower the cost barrier to small companies that want to get into this and they don't have the resources to build all their own data infrastructure. So you're going to start seeing a lot more of those kind of cloud-based services coming from Unity, and really AI and machine learning is a very, very important focus area, so much so that the gentleman that runs that business for us is Dr. Danny Lang. And Dr. Lang was the general manager of Amazon when they built their AI platform, and then he went over to Uber and helped build Uber's platform and has been at Unity for the last 3 years. So, we've got one of the top experts in the entire world leading our business. So, watch that space because there's a lot of exciting things coming out.
Yeah, this points out that there's a lot of other things going on in this high-speed, high-capacity world that's coming our way and has been coming our way, and so it is important for simulation to take advantage of that. But like in our simulation overview course, we teach both the fundamentals that are going on now, as well as how technology fits in. And at the system level, the specifications and requirements remain the same, no matter what the technology is. Even back when it was analog computers, it still had the same pretty much system requirements for a training system for an operator of a vehicle. And but it's down at the component and subsystem level where the technology changes come. And they can have a different set of requirements and things for them. But again, getting that interface communications between the older components and subsystems and the new ones coming in is one of the real challenges without changing a lot of the assets. Now we've got a number of things for in our course. We include not only the standard simulation world and at the system level examples of that, but we do some live demonstrations too of AI application and the VR and AR application simulator of each type that you're able to see live and be in. So we provide that. We've worked with Magic Leap on some of their applications in the AR world in our lab and delivered some products associated with that. So we're able to see those things as well.
But I think the work that you guys are doing is so important, because where can you go if you don't know simulation? Where do you go to learn? I mean, this is one of the in fact, one of the things now is as we're onboarding people in our own organization, we want to send them to your courses so that they know our technology, they know the applications of it, but they need to get a primer in simulation, right? And so the work that you guys are doing with UCF is really important, because simulation is going way beyond just our traditional view of simulation. I mean, all these commercial companies that are building products, now they have the technology and it's affordable to create digital simulations of their products before they even build them, right? I mean, we're designing helicopters, and prototyping them, and before a dollar is spent on fabbing them, right? I saw a presentation from the Holiday Inn Corporation, one of the conferences. Holiday Inns are owned by private owners, right? And so the Holiday Inn company designs a prototype of a hotel, and they try to sell it to the owner, and the owner has to be involved in the design and all that. And they were sharing that they used to build like 10 versions of that before they would, 10 clay versions or models, whatever, and it costed lots of dollars. So now they build one. They do everything virtually, all the simulation of how the thing's going to operate, the building control systems and things like that go into the hotel before they spend the money on building the prototype. So I think my point there is we'll start looking at where the expertise that we've developed in this industry is going to absolutely be relevant in industries that we probably wouldn't traditionally look at, right?
Correct, right. And we talk about the traditional development cycle and use the engineering V diagram and show how simulator development, just like any other development, with the whole front end process as well as the build process, followed by the life cycle and sustainment process. And cover a number of the areas that impact the future for a training device, a 20-year life, 30-year life of something to sustainment that's required to maintain concurrency with the operational vehicle and maintain it as well as do other technology integrations in that system. So we introduced in the overview course people to that. And then we have some detailed dive down courses. We're going to have one next month on visual systems, just dedicated strictly to the visual system side. So we're beginning some of our specialized courses as well.
Yeah. Are you guys running your courses now? Do you have a virtual element during COVID, or are you pivoting to that?
Yes, we've had a couple of courses in the virtual that we've done this past summer, including one that had about 24 virtual students out of town with the Air Force, and so yes, we're doing both live and virtual.
All right, well let's throw down a challenge here, Walt. Let's figure out in the next couple of years how we can create a virtual classroom where anybody can sit anywhere, put a VR headset on, and attend all your courses. Right? Let's make that a goal. How about that? I think we have some questions that come in. I've seen them popping up. So Zachary Todd, is the DoD interested in AI technologies for simulation and training, or most interested in AI data for data processing? What do you think? What do you think, Walt?
Well, different aspects. Parts with DoD are interested in both of those. I don't have a specific example of the AI. I'm not sure whether you do.
Well, if you go to the JIC website, right, the Joint Artificial Intelligence Center website. I think I actually attended a conference week before last, and they're kind of laying out some of the use cases. And so I think the short answer is all of the above, right? So anywhere that AI and machine learning can improve human performance, organizational performance, and then in the area of geospatial data, I mean, you're now talking about using AI to create better images from satellite imagery, or to create 3D models from a 2D picture. So I think the short answer is it's all the above.
Yeah, say again, just so they hear that location, that source that you identified.
Yeah, the Joint Artificial Intelligence Center, it's called JAIC. I don't have the URL right on me, but if you Google that, it'll take you to their website. But what they are is that the Department of Defense has established an overall agency to help support AI across all of the federal government, not just the DoD. And so they're working on tackling some of those things, and there's presentations and stuff that you can get there. Okay, JC, we've used Magic Leap to host medical simulation products, starting the same now for HoloLens 2. That was from Kyle. So this whole medical simulation area is to me just fascinating, right? And I think the DoD is ahead in a lot of ways, especially with trauma medicine, right? Because of obviously the need to save lives. And so I think what I've seen limiting some of the more broader adoption is two things. One, it's the device technology, right? The Magic Leap device is relatively new. The HoloLens 2 just came out and it was readily available 6 months ago. But that's opening up whole new areas to do things that we'd only thought about before, dreamt about before. So I definitely think that's going to be an area that's going to be there's going to be a lot of exciting things coming in. And I think the other thing is the content or the physics behind it. I was I was working with a client on a project where they wanted to use augmented reality to guide the surgeon during surgery in internal organs, which is soft and squishy. So it's very difficult to model those. And everyone's different inside, right? It's not all the same. And if you push on this thing moves. And so right there is a phenomenal engineering challenge to track, to be able to use tracking technology, computer vision technology on internal organs. So, folks are going to be working, once they solve that, then it now opens up a whole new application area for this particular use case.
Yeah, that's an area that we've been doing content development for in the AR and VR area, and it relates to some of the earth moving, terrain modification, backhoe digging out a hole, so that sort of thing of having a changing model is something that's going on now in our model development work.
So this other question, do you think the future of training is in AR or VR? Okay, well, I guess that's going to depend on who you ask and what business they're in. but I think this is there are a lot of discussions around this, but I think there's two fundamental things. One, it's the use case. So when you're in VR and you're completely immersed, there's no outside distractions, and you can really immerse yourself in that particular thing, right? Where augmented reality lets you continue out in the real world and do things. And there's absolutely equal use cases in both. Now, when you start getting into, well, so for example, if I'm going to learn how to fly an aircraft, right? I'm not going to use augmented reality to learn how to fly that aircraft. I want to be completely enclosed and have the out the window scene of the aircraft and be able to, like I would be in a real simulator. And I don't see how you could do that in augmented reality, right? Unless you can make the screen change. But if I need to learn how to fix an engine, right, on a jet or a car, having augmented reality to guide me through it, it's training, but it's also actual guided assistance. So there's equal use cases for both. I do think that the business side of AR is going to be a lot larger than VR. I think overall, using augmented reality for point of need training is a very, very large market. And if you look at all the industry analyst reports that, that VR started off like this and kind of went up, AR started off like this, and then all of a sudden AR goes up like that. So just from an adoption perspective and the dollars being spent, AR is going to be a larger market for industrial use cases. Okay.
Yeah, we have a comment here. The future of training is both, he feels, but VR with biofeedback. He's asking about that. And your point about depends on the use case is a big factor there, about whether you're training an operator of a vehicle to become an athlete, and it's like a fighter pilot. We really want him to become the best athlete on the field of combat, and so it's really important that he has the volume of practice in order to be able to do things in seconds, a whole bunch of things, and so it can't be something that is abnormal to him. It has to fit in with how he's going to behave in the cockpit. You're beyond knowledge. It's your skill and ability that's functioning, and you get your skills through repetition. And I think it's yet to be proven how much biofeedback can build that athlete skill. Biofeedback, I would think, is helping a person possibly improve their ability situation by better understanding what's going on within themselves. But that's more of an analysis kind of thing, and that's just my first impression hearing about that.
Yeah, I mean, I know, HP with their reverb, which has been a very, very successful product. Um, they're incorporating biofeedback capabilities into their reverbs, and some of the things that they're looking at, like, perspiration and pupil and heart rate and all of that stuff. You can easily see where in a training environment you could start measuring cognitive load, measuring heart rate, pulse, things like that. Yeah, well, I think sometimes people, we go to one extreme or the other, right? It's like we're looking at, can VR replace everything? And the answer is absolutely not. But there are places where VR along that training chain can help, right?
Right. And one of the things that, like AR and VR, because the visual, wide angle visual systems are so large, that if you can apply AR or VR, you can reduce the footprint of your simulator significantly. And that affects a whole lot of other cost factors like facility size, and how many simulators you can get on board a C-130
Yeah, right.
or on tractor trailer trucks. And so sometimes the footprint limitation can drive you towards an AR or VR application.
Absolutely. Are there any other questions that came in that we missed? The biggest challenge is content. Use content to create the stress environment for training that one would give experience content. How do you create the cognitive stress in decision making? Well, I'm gonna let you address that one, because that one.
Well, the decision making is really important when you have but you have lots of players in decision making. If it's by yourself, that's one thing. It's you and yourself and all your sensors and your onboard system. But like an Aegis system, which an Aegis system is kind of extreme. A ship has to be capable of fighting anti-submarine warfare, anti-surface warfare, anti-air ballistic missile defense, all simultaneously. And so it's a crew coordination. You only got so many assets on board the ship, and they need to be assigned on a priority basis. So when Aegis came along, initially there was an extensive amount of research done on decision-making training in that high-speed decision-making area that the Aegis type system. The same thing you could apply to a larger aircraft like a bomber, that the B-2 or the B-1 or the B-52 that have larger crews that are doing engagements, and so they have those simulation assets now, and transitioning those into the VR world and AR world would be exciting. But it takes a lot of assets to train the team training. Even like the Apache and most fighter airplane, you don't go fly alone. You're flying with a wingman and a flight manager somewhere that's you're working as a team, and those are important things that VR and AR can make possible to more people. So that's an important area. Any other questions?
I think we're getting the signal to wrap it up.
Yeah, I think we're hitting our time limit. So
is the virtual hook going to come out and pull us off?
Yeah, it could be.
Well, look, I just want to say, like I said, I really appreciate you guys asking me to be on this webinar, and the work that you guys are doing is very important. We're looking forward to collaborating on the course that you guys are going to be offering for machine learning and AI. So, I guess some announcements hopefully will be coming out about that in the near future. I encourage folks out there that are looking to get into simulation or understand it more, these guys are the experts. They've got the courses. And again, thank you very much. And if there's anything else I can do, please let me know.
Thank you, John, for joining us today. And I want to thank those who have been watching. And there's a link that's going to be shown that will let you take another look at ABC Simulation Training Center and hear from their instructors about the things that they're teaching in that basic overview course. So again, thanks for joining us.
Take care, everyone. Have a good weekend.
Sure.